shelf where all the broken things were piled. The stories told in whispers and in scars. Brought you here beneath these waiting stars. Not for a fix or just to soothe the ache, but for the chance that something new could break. So let the silence hold you like a seam where every thread of hope begins to gleam. This is the in-between. Welcome to the butterfly room, where healing's not an end, it is a tune. You learn to hum and gentle afternoons. Transformation blooms from a cocoon of questions. You'll be led to see the colors waiting in the thread. Welcome to the butterfly room. We'll hold the lens up to the hidden part, the dormant art that's beating in your heart. We'll map the change, the subtle, steady turn, the lessons that the aftermath can learn. Not to erase the lines that make your map, but to unfold the wings across the gap and watch the old shell fragile drift away, making space for the new light of day. In this alchemical space, welcome to the butterfly room, where healing's not an end, it is a tune. You learn to hum in gentler afternoons. Transformation blooms from a cocoon of questions. You'll be led to see the colors waiting in the... All right, folks, we've got an amazing show, and I'm going to bring up the lady of the hour, and she's got a moment of silence that we're going to have as well. But right now, I'm going to bring her up and all along those lines because this is another amazing show, and I know we've got an amazing guest and all along those lines. But I'm going to step aside, and we'll have this moment of silence for your dear friend and all along those lines.
Good evening, everyone. I wanted to have a moment of silence for a dear friend of mine, daughter LaDon K. Jackson. She was the first lieutenant commander of Golconda Court, number 16. She left us suddenly, but we know that we love you and you will always remain forever in our hearts, and we will miss your spirit. And until we meet again. Thank you, Mark. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 19 of the Butterfly Room. Today, our topic is self-help, and it is my pleasure for us to meet our guest, recovery coach, Sister Lori Child. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Lori. Lori Child is a woman who has come through many adversities, starting at being abandoned at birth and found hours old and placed in a hospital and then an orphan until adoption. Lori has survived many trials, tests, though not always making the best choices. She has been an underdog position. Being a teenage mother after willfully rejecting the wisdom of her parents, she said, and in being a habitual runaway, Lori found herself in marriage, relationships, and ultimately became a drug addict. Lori's stories show resiliency, faith, and hope. She is delivered and recovered, she said, from the lifestyle of the world and life of an addict and its vices. She said, to God be the glory. It is my pleasure to welcome recovery coach Lori Child to the Butterfly Room and its listeners.
Well, good evening, everyone. I am so honored to be here tonight with our Miss Toya Ramel and the Butterfly Room and all those that have joined us. I just count it a privilege to be able to share my story. It's not just a story, it is a testimony. And
Yeah.
you cannot have a testimony, Miss
Mm,
Toya, without having a test. So from the
exactly.
beginning of my life, it's been a test. And it's also been a journey. But I can truly say today that I'm delivered, I'm recovered from the lifestyle of an addict, being, just living in that selfless, bad decision lifestyle. And that's why I'm here today, because God has blessed me to see for almost 40 years of recovery. So,
Thank you so much for your introduction and being so candid with us this evening. As you know, I am a child of an addict, and on a previous show, I listed that was a label for me. So you have to think moving forward. You're trying to show somebody I am not a product of my environment. My parents may have, my family may have, but that's not me. And someone had told me, when someone is committed to misunderstanding you, they're not going to understand you. And until I took that in and understood what it meant, I was lost. We had a guest, Markia Ashley. She said, spiritual suicide is the dangers of not knowing who you are. So I guess I didn't know who I was. And as looking at your bio, when you sent it, I looked at that. Apparently, when you were on this journey, as you said, for to create a testimony, you're tested. I was tested as well. And I'm glad that you opened up with that because it makes what my vision was. How you say Habakkuk 2:3, write the vision, make it plain. I knew
yes.
that I wanted to do something. But I think that sometimes you go through tests, as you said, trials and tribulations of life. But I knew the spirit that I had inside me said, I'm not going to stop. And then that particular day, just to let the butterfly room and its listeners know, we were at a 5K walk for charity in Metuchen. And whatever it is, they say there's a light. We have lights, and I guess you can tell the listeners how it happened, but I just know I met you and share what happened, so it's not all about me talking. So tell them how our interchange was at that walk.
Well, well, first I want to say that I employed the help of my four grandchildren, letting them know that we were gonna do a walk, and so it was so fun, and they walked, and they did the walk. They were second place, third place, fourth place, so it was just so becoming because
Mhm.
what I tried to demonstrate, not only to them, but to people, I am a 3R coach. So, in our community of wellness, I'm known as the 3R coach. So, they say, well, she's the recovery coach with a 3R approach. So, what I said to them, we're going to walk, we're going to aid because someone has a mission, and we're going to have fun doing it. And they were tired. I had to get them Starbucks. So I had to do all this stuff to get them ready for this walk. But on that walk, I met Miss Latoya. And she was out there so energetic and doing the exercises. I said, look, at almost 66, that was before my birthday. I said, some of this stuff I can't do. So I let the little kids do it for me. But Miss Toya had a draw. And she was like, oh, yeah, and I heard her talking about the show. And as my grandchildren would say, I was ear hustling.
Oh, wow. Well, thank
And
you for your candor.
you said, well, I have people that come on my show and my ears begin to perk up. I was like, let me listen in. And, and she talked for a minute. Then we had to break apart and go do other things. But our sister, Amy Morris,
Yes, I love her. That's my sister in
she's,
Christ. I love
yes,
her.
yes. She said, oh my God, you got to hear her story. It is so amazing. She has a life changing story. And I know that where I've been, it is life changing.
Yes, it
And
is.
I, it's, it's knowing without knowing. But like the Bible says, we don't boast of ourselves. We let other people. And it's not that I trying to have false humility, but what it is, the Bible says a man's gift will make room for him and bring
Mhm.
him before great men. So
Wow.
I
Thank you.
always pray that my name will enter the room that my feet have yet to walk. So my name, wherever it is going abroad, my feet have not gotten there yet. So
Yes.
someone else was able to bring us together and for a common purpose that we, through our journey, will make other people's lives better. And
Yes.
in that 3R, it's about reset,
Hmm.
it's about restore, and it's about rejuvenate.
Yes.
Because when you live a lifestyle as a drug addict, and I tell the young kids this because they're like, oh, well, we got the dispensaries, we got the legal weed. So what y'all old folks did. But I said, baby, remember this. For the real, there's always a counterfeit.
Yes, and that's a good segue into this, because today what we were going to do is really unfold what self help is. On one of my earlier shows, I talked about 12 steps. And for me, earlier in my career, I worked at a mental health center. I ran a drug program in Essex County. And from there, I met a lot of folks. Then, as far as me working and volunteering, I see people day to day. And it's interesting how it's all about perspective. Like you just said, it's perspective. And, as we dive into unfolding self help on his platform, we're going to go through different things. But I want to start small. Because even like you said, reset, restore, and rejuvenate. One of the models that we used a lot was the stages of change. And what I wanted to get into is Dr. Austin El Osta. And he talked about the self-care matrix. I'm gonna pull up a a chart for that shortly. But the whole point here is that you live through this system. And for me, living it, I initially was supposed to work in the hospital. I said, oh, I want to be a psych nurse, so I have a psych minor. But then life happens. You have a baby. Oh, I'm gonna go finish my master's. So then I had them. Then I wanted to go back. Marriage didn't happen. Oh, I want to finish the two clinicals. And then now here I am. I literally was dating someone. He went to go see someone that helped him. He says, oh, my girl just got her master's. And here I am. I literally worked there, and I ended up getting my CADC. But the crazy part is I did not know it was going to lead to now. That's what I call a divine intervention. You understand?
Mhm.
We all have
Yes.
a dream. But my dream was always to do other things. But I was told, oh, no, you can't do that.
Yes.
The no's that we get. So, anyone that's
Hmm.
listening right now, when you hear the no, why do you keep getting the no? If you have a light inside you, a spirit, is telling you something. As we just stated, we met, it was a happenstance, but really wasn't. She
Right.
did not know that I was a COA. I did not know that she was in recovery. You understand? So sometimes the alignment happens and we just don't know.
No.
So I'm
Hmm.
ecstatic that you were able to tell the parallel, and thank you for being honest about ear hustling. It really wasn't ear hustling, it was your spirit telling you. Let's change that frown and make it turn it upside down from a negative to a positive, right?
Hmm.
The positive was you at the right place and at the right time. Because what
Hmm.
is the thing that we share, and what your model is? They say negative people. What do they say? Negative people place,
Um,
negative
the
people, places, and
place
things.
and things, and
So
that's
that
what we have to change.
Yes, and that is really what we're gonna start with. And I'm going before Mark pulls in this slide, I'm gonna talk about that. So the stages of change, if anyone is just tuning in now, is pretty much the framework of recovery. One of the main models that's easy. And the stages of change and recovery is pre-contemplation, meaning I don't think I have an issue. Contemplation, I think I do. But when am I going to start? Then that becomes the action. I'm doing something about it. And that's where self help comes in. So, what Sister Lori is speaking of, when you take your recovery to yourself and you're going to own it, then from there, that's you're doing the action. But then after you do it, you have to maintain that. That's a lifelong process. As she just stated, she is in the fourth quarter of that. 40 years, 4 decades. And was that an easy job for you to do?
No, no.
So can you share a little bit about that? Because remember I said I'm going to ask you some questions. So in
Yes.
the beginning, how many times did you have to try again?
Well, the blessing, I never relapsed.
Then that's to God be the glory.
That and but you know what it was? It was getting to the starting point, the real point,
Mm-hmm.
because I would play Russian roulette. I said, okay, I'll get high today. I won't get high tomorrow. And I kept playing, but I never went as far as saying, okay, I'm done, I'm walking away, never to go back, and then go back. And when I hit rock bottom, my daughter was 3 months old, and I used every day up until I had her. I
Okay.
was I was using cocaine every single day. And then I was like, well, I got this pregnancy. I'm so sick. I want to give up the baby. I called the authorities and said, pick up my baby. And they were waiting. Her blood system showed nothing.
And that is a blessing, because normally when you're using any type of substance, is that it stays in your system up to 72 hours. So
Hmm.
that's amazing. So in that particular case, the difference is here, when I had worked with some DIFUS cases, I would get referrals, and then I would get folks to say, I'm not using. But then I said the toxicology report says this. Oh, that
Hmm.
has to be a mistake. I was helping my boyfriend cut up some coke, or I would get all kinds of
Hmm.
stories. So I
Hmm.
said, well, do you want to see? Just as an example. But the point is that you're taking onus. And sometimes, when you think about the severity, for some people, it's abusing versus
Hmm.
addicted. We're not going to go into that today. But in that particular case, for someone who is abusing, then that means that it's not something that they'll need. It's more so as they're trying to cope. So that's
Yeah.
what it sounds like to me, which later on we ain't going to have everyone, because we have to come you back, or they might have to come to a group so they can really hear your story,
Hmm.
and that's your choice. But I thank you for sharing that. Now, Mark, I want him to pop up this chart. Can you pull up the chart for us about the matrix? So now let's look at this, Lori. So we're looking at, this is like some recovery lingo for anyone listening, because right now we're talking about micro, meso, and macro. And as you know, right now, when you explain to us your journey in the system, now did you get paid self help, or you did everything by yourself, going to self help groups, or what was your journey? What type of treatment did you do, or was everything self help?
Well, my parents had a friend who was also my pastor.
Mm-hmm.
They watched me come to church, be high, needing the sugar, the candy, and just trying to maintain an image of not being a user.
Mm-hmm.
And they confronted me and they said, do you want help? And I said, yeah. They said, okay, if we get a program, will you go? And I said, yes. And I said yes because I couldn't know, I was using so much to the point I couldn't see my own reflection in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And I cried out to God and I said, God, if you deliver me, I'll never use drugs again, because I was
Mm-hmm.
scared at that point. They came to my house, they said, let's go. And I'm like, let's go where? They said, oh, you're going to treatment. And I was trying to find a way to maneuver. They took me up in Kennesaw, Georgia, to the mountains. That if you ran away, the buzzards would get you before you got to
That's long
somewhere.
term. The long term programs are the best. And thank you for sharing that, because And not to interject, you were ready. Because a lot of times, when we have stressors in our life, and we sometimes it's a cry for help, and even for folks who don't use substances, it could be just having a mental health diagnosis, that you have a cry for help. So right now you cried out, and someone saw you and you were open. And I appreciate you sharing this, because for anyone there who's listening, because if you may have not accepted that help, things would probably been different. But you know what? When
Mm-hmm.
there's a will, there's a way, as the old folks say, right?
Yes.
There's a will, there's a
Yes.
way. It may have took you a couple times, but you're a person who, as you said, you went through a lot of trauma. The in your intro that you shared with me, your bio, those traumatic situations in itself is a cry of help. And for me, also being a cycle breaker and a trauma survivor, and this is one of the reasons why I feel this is my purpose, because when I see folks that I have helped 20, 30 years later, it makes my heart warm. And now by us having this platform, we're going to help others, as you said. But let's look at this chart here. So basically, what Sister Lori is explaining is that she went into a treatment program. She went into a recovery environment. And that's the easy part. So today we're just going to go in, we're going to introduce this to you. So the first thing here is that you need to identify where you are in your stages of change, which we mentioned. And then we have to look at what type of program structure you're going to have. Well, as far as macro, you have system focus. That's the policy and culture, as we discussed. Then you're going to go around to patient center, resource utilization. So what Sister Lori did is she got into a program. They have a detox, which is short term. You
Mm-hmm.
may have short term inpatient, which is a 28-day, or you go into long term, which is over 30 days. And then from there, you have the recovery. And what she's explaining with the three R's is after you come out, you would go to that. But in some cases, if the journey is not very serious, we would tell folks to do 90 meetings in 90
90
days. That
days. Mm-hmm.
right. So from there, while you go into those meetings, 90 meetings in 90 days, you're gonna learn. I call it the accelerated track. Sometimes if you don't have money, if you can get through that, then you can do it. But also it's the environment that you're in. So let's go through here. The next thing is that once you decide what it's going to be, then your treatment is going to be individual. But you have to have a social network, as stated here. And then you have to be motivated, and you have to activate this change. So what Sister Lori said is that she was ready and willing. Okay. Then it was person centered, and then she also had the what you call activities. And I want to go into the 7 pillars of self care. The first one at the bottom is knowledge and health literacy. As she said, at her church, someone knew someone. The next thing was number 2, mental well being, self awareness, and agency. Um, and then activity. When you went to this program, did you guys do a lot of physical activity there? What did you guys do, if you recall?
Groups.
Hmm.
We did a lot of groups.
Did you do any physical activity, or at this time the model was more just sitting, talking? Did you have
Yes.
recreation time or no?
It was no recreation time, because more so it was more introspect to really get to deal with yourself.
Okay, it was Hazelton. Or did you use Hazelton books at that time?
That they used Hazelton,
Hmm.
and they did a lot of Dr. Talbert.
Okay, thank you. So now, for anyone, if you want to Google as AI for Dr. Tal, because things have changed. Then the other thing too is one of the other parts of this is that for some people who have had a long history of use, you have to really get to healthy eating. Because one of the things that for folks who have used, it can affect your teeth. It can do a lot of things to your body, your liver. One of the things
Yes.
that I have tell for folks, even if you're diabetic, what we recommend, we'll say for healthy living holistic care is taking a detox tea. Your liver can be regenerated, and people don't realize
Yes.
that.
Hmm.
That's something, an organ that can be regenerated. Then the other thing is some people, if they're not ready, they may do harm reduction, which is number 5, risk avoidance. Number 6, good hygiene. Looking at that, some people will know when a person may be using based on their hygiene.
Yes.
Am I getting up? Am I showering? Am I, getting myself together? Am I grooming? And number 7, rational use of products and services. So what Lori explained, she utilized the services that were available to her. Self-care activities. That is what your schedule was. So now from there, you got your schedule. Then what happened? You got discharged. Now, when you got discharged, what are some of the things that you did? And then I'm going to go back into the chart. But we want the listeners to know from your story. Once you finished that program, what did you do next?
So I went from the detox, and then I went to, and then the severity of the cocaine coming out of my system, it was so severe
Okay.
that they decided, let's put her in a 28 day.
Mm-hmm.
And from the 28 day, then I went into the halfway house.
Oh,
Um,
nice. Thanks for
and
sharing.
I began to do um, work so I could pay for my living. So I had to get a job. And then I had to find different things other than meetings. But I got kicked out
Oh,
because
you get kicked out because it sounded like to me, you from what you're sharing, you were doing everything you were supposed to do. So where's the clincher here? What happened? What
the
happened? The
director
kicker.
decided I was not treatment material. And I only
Huh. And
asked
did you
to
ever get
go
an
to
answer why?
church because I said, well, at least 1 or 2 Sundays a month, I need to go to church. Church is a big part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a group meeting. And mind you, I was in the house with 3 other females that actually were finding creative ways to still use. And all I wanted to do was go to church. So they did terminate my residential care, and I found a sponsor, and I did 90 meetings in 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
But then what I found out was that even though I didn't have the drug in my system, I still had addict behavior. So my thing was to feel the rush. So it,
Okay, and thank you for that because now we can go up this. Now you see, you
yes.
start from the bottom. Now you see how we're building self care behaviors, right? So basically, you were doing the activities, and one of the things with the newer models is long as you're doing an activity. So if you're a believer, faith based, when someone would come to me, I would tell them sign. That's a meeting. Sign the paper. I want your pastor to sign. You see the
Hmm.
difference now?
Yes.
Because what we've learned, and it was one of the guys John Craigie, he had a feeling good book. And one of the things he says that spirituality was the glue. So we had focus groups. So at this point, some of the old belief was that spirituality was not part of this process. But you have to think, if I'm doing a biopsychosocial assessment, I'll ask someone, okay, why are you here? Biology would be, okay, I'm in pain. There were some people that's who use opiates, right? Then
Mhm.
psycho is what you're thinking. Social is where you hanging out. So that's a difference thing. So now what you explain is the folks that particular site, they knew exactly what to do. Now with you, you may not have been maybe generating enough funds. I can't speak for those folks, but for them to say you're not treatment material means is that if they did the assessments that we did, you did not fit the recovery domains. So we're going to talk about that of why they said you had to go. They wanted someone that maybe needed more help, but hey, at this point you went there, you got the treatment, and then now they figured you were better. So that's actually a compliment, Lori. So then it goes to the behaviors. Sometimes that's what they call stinking thinking, where a
Yep.
person may be away from the drugs, but you're in the environment, which could be a potential trigger. And that's is when it gets interesting. But then the environment sometimes, if you say, for example, if you lived in a housing project, as you know, if you drive by, it may be people there, which could be a trigger for you. So what
Hmm.
happens is you really need to look at the self-care environment. So if anyone that's listening, once you are in the recovery process, it could be from anything. At
Hmm.
one point, I didn't want to acknowledge I'm in recovery for anger. So treating anger management is that when you've gone through certain things and you're trying your best, then you become angry because you feel that you're looking for a result. So now what you have to do is work on acceptance, which we'll talk about later. But those
Mm-hmm.
are the things that could be triggers for someone. If someone is angry, there's an emotion it can cause you to use. And
Yes.
that's why some people, they exercise. Instead of using a drug, they might do calisthenics so that they can exercise, read. You find an
Mm-hmm.
activity to fill that. And that's why schedule is very important. So let's look at here. We're talking about the environment. Number 4, it says daily choices, lifestyle, which I was just mentioning, self manage ailments. What are your issues? If you know you have a physical ailment, as far as something that will require you to take a pain medicine, you might have to find something else. Some people will have long acting medication, acupuncture, or whatever it is, but you would have to speak to a doctor. A pain management specialist would be recommended, because that's something that we had did. We had to basically give you referrals. So if I'm going to discharge you, and I know you have certain things, I have to discharge you with the appropriate referral to make sure that you don't relapse. The other one is long-term conditions. If you know that you're in an abusive relationship, that's a potential trigger for you. Compulsory care and major trauma. One of the major areas that I specialize, especially with the women's group, is that you can be clean. However, your relationship could be an issue if there was some
Mm-hmm.
type of abuse, sexual, physical, emotional, economic. If we have had ladies will say, you know what, you're ready to be discharged. Can you tell us about your recovery environment? So at that time, Sister Lori, when you were preparing to leave, how was your recovery environment? I know you said you had the church. Was there anything in your life that was a potential trigger for you to use? If you would care to share to the
Um,
listeners.
I think for me, well, I had my daughter, so someone was caring for my infant child
Mm-hmm.
while because mind you, I moved from New Jersey all the way to Georgia to try to break the cycle that I was in the abusive relationship with my daughter's father, who was
Okay.
also my dealer.
Oh wow.
And so the for me in that part of the journey and the just maintaining, I had to stay away from him. And that wasn't hard because we were 800 and some miles away. But the test
Mm-hmm.
came when I did come home. I wanted him to see his daughter. The first thing he did, he pulled out the tray of cocaine.
And that's interesting. So, how did you feel from there? I want you to really be honest. Now, if you're telling someone that you're trying to be clean and they pull out the substance that you're supposed to be away from, how did you feel in that moment?
In that moment, I did not know that I was really, really free until I said no. I said, no, that's okay. And I bypassed it.
Now, did he attempt to do that behavior again?
He didn't try to coerce me, or he said, okay. But the empowerment that I
Mhm.
had on the inside, because all my life I've never been able to say no to the bad choices, bad decisions. And it's always been like, oh, it's not going to hurt you. Do whatever it is you want to do. But I felt more empowered in the no than I ever had in my life. So now no became easier for me.
Yes, and that's what they say. I know I was a victim of that. Not saying no, because sometimes when you love people, and it's just interesting that you shared that, and I appreciate that. Mark, if you're there, can you remove the slide? Um, but one of the things that I try to tell folks is that this is your individual story, your story. You can start all over as many times as you need to.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay, because right now it's your journey. And self-help means that you have to identify this is something I have to do lifelong. And as a trauma survivor, you have to know what your triggers are. So right
Mm-hmm.
now, and this is the thing, we have tonight's conversation. There's a lot of different platforms that speak about this, and then there's a lot of folks that want to say no. But when that person is the breadwinner and takes care of you, how are you going to tell the breadwinner no? And now in this particular case, when you said no, were you living there with him or were you visiting?
I was visiting.
Now, see, now what if you lived there? How do you think it would have went?
I would not have been able to. Um, and I know that's why God does all things well,
Mm-hmm.
because this is the ironic part. The person that started me using drugs, that gave me my first sniff of cocaine, was the person that packed me up and moved me out so I could get clean. And
Mm-hmm.
they took me 800, me and my daughter, 850 miles away, and set me up in a trailer. I got a job and never saw them again.
Wow. And you see how this is, and a lot of folks that I've spoken to, they're afraid to talk because of the judgment. And sometimes I'll speak to people and they say, why are you so open? I said, because why am I going to carry this? I know what my triggers are. The more I stuff it and stuff it and stuff it, it's going to take away my positivity. And for me being a COA, it was to the point of I moved a lot after my mother passed away. I was like, I don't want to move. And so me as a child, I was fearful of speaking up
Mhm.
because as I got older and I went through this journey for myself of identity, um, there were some things that what, because of my lens, you're never gonna understand my point of view. And I think that when we respect one another and we respect ourselves, we can do something. I had a conversation with someone and they were telling me, and just in, some of the things that you do are self-inflicted. I didn't understand what that meant. And
Mhm.
then someone would say that to you, well, you made the choice. Well, sometimes if you don't walk in my shoes, you really don't know what that's about. And I
Mhm.
feel that a lot of trauma survivors that I speak to, they say I walk like a horse. You just think about it. I said this to a family member the other day. I said, if you
Yep.
walking straight, you don't see things
Mhm.
because I have a goal. I have a one-track mind. But then if I walk and I'm constantly getting hit in my face, look, literally, I did this.
Mhm.
Just in a joking but in a serious way, I said, if I'm walking forward and I see the light where I'm trying to go, and I have all these different distractions because that's what the adversary does.
Yes.
There's light, there's dark. So I'm to my point is I respect there's a difference of opinion here. But when I have a goal, we both were in agreement, maybe to agree to not to disagree. But one of the things that I've noticed is that when I talk to different people, the commonality is that if I am working hard to get myself together, why would someone try to kick me down? And that's the part that I don't understand. But then I will say to someone, if you're reaching out, anyone here who is early in their recovery, or you're not having such a good day, you're grieving. If you're speaking to someone out of love and they don't respond to you, do not take it personal.
Mhm.
Someone told me that no response is a response. And they said that I was disrespecting myself by allowing people to speak to me like that. And I didn't understand it at first. So let me just ask you a question in reference to that. When you were in your recovery, do you feel that when you were trying to go forward, did you feel people try to pull you backwards? Honestly, as you think back.
Um, yes. Because no one felt I was serious. They would always look at me with the suspicious eye.
Hmm.
But the drugs, the cocaine was only one part of the addiction. So where I got delivered from the drinking every day, the clubbing, the drugs, the alcohol, the cigarettes, I still had the behavior of the sexing, the being manipulative, and no one, and even today there are people that feel like, oh my God, I've literally had someone say, you wear being a drug addict like a badge of honor. But if you come through $1,500 a week of using cocaine, you still got your right mind, you still got the activities of your limbs, I'm not in a grave. My children, my family have not had to bury me. And mind you, I spoke to you when I met you. In
Mm-hmm.
5 months, I buried three siblings in 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
December to April, I buried three siblings. I'm the in that family, I'm the only one left. And what I
Wow.
realized that whole time, you know what I wanted? I just wanted to be loved
Wow.
and
Mm,
be
mm.
accepted. When you come through being found on a doorstep in a brown paper bag, wrapped in a blanket, the cord still attached to you, and you're hours old, you're a Jane Doe, somebody has to make up a name for you, and you find this out at 14, mind you, that's a pivotal time in your life. You're getting ready to cross over from being a child to a young adult. You got hormones, your body's changing. Nothing makes sense. And you carry this. So I've carried all of this from the beginning for the last 40 years. But
Thank
in
you.
that, I got healed, I got whole, and I got delivered. And I tell people, nah, I'm not better than you. I don't even think that. What I am, I'm respectful to me. I've learned how to love me. I celebrate me. And I don't let anybody disrespect me. If you don't like me, you're just of a different type. I'll sit you over there and you just watch my smoke.
And,
And
and
that's where I'm serious. And I've
but you know
had
what? It's a commonality that you're speaking of, and I've been in situations like that. And just me being a mental health professional, and sometimes when you work in the mental health field, you have to have a mentor. And one of the things that I've seen is just being in a situation and having anger back then. And for me to be on the brink of 50 and to get angry. And the anger comes is saying that if you're showing love, why you're not getting love back? And thank you for
mhm,
sharing, because that's been a common theme for me. Because it's not that you're wearing it a badge of honor. Like you said, a testimony is a test. And I've had
mhm,
several surgeries. I'm dealing with it right now, but sometimes you need to be sat down. And the fact that you have the acuity to share that, because some people won't ever say anything because they say, if I say something, I'm not going to be liked. And that's
right.
where I say that we're performative. Why do
Mhm.
we need to
Yes.
perform? And the reason why you're performing, let me give you to release, because if you read the book from Markia Ashley, Spiritual Suicide is the dangers of not knowing who you are. When you don't know who you are, you don't have a rubric. You don't have someone giving you the cues that say you're supposed to do A, B, and C. And
Mhm.
for me, my mother died at a young age. I had two sisters that raised me. So I love them both. But when you come into a situation and it's not your parents, it's always different. And if
Mhm.
someone has multiple children, folks don't ever look at it like that. You
Yeah.
need love. And by you saying that, it made my heart warm. And this is why I like the butterfly, because when I hear things like that, my heart does this like a butterfly. And that's why I put my hand on my chest. And that's where I know the creator is talking to me. And by
Mhm.
you saying that, it gives me, it puts what I needed right now to come out, because I wanted to know in this journey of self help, what is it? So now basically, you know what you need,
Mhm.
right? And what happens is when you're in this self help journey, I'm in it for other reasons. Because my parents use, I said, I don't want to use that. And of course, people drink alcohol and things like that. My health won't allow. I would love to have a glass of wine here and there, a beer when it's cold. But that's for someone who doesn't have an issue. When a
Mhm.
person eventually develops an issue, is because there may be some trauma and it's an out. And
Mhm.
mainly, the first step, what does it say? It says, number one, we admitted we are
Admit that
powerless
I
over
was.
alcohol or
Oh,
whatever it is, and that our lives have become unmanageable.
that.
So what that means, that you have a vice of whatever it is, you fill in the blank. And there's another show that we mentioned that if anyone wants to go back and listen to that. But thank you for sharing that, because when you're out here and you're embracing this journey, you need to figure out what it is. And acceptance is the main thing. And sometimes it's self worth. If
Yeah.
you don't know what your self-worth is,
Hmm.
then that's when the acceptance comes in. Mainly to get better in this journey, you have to pull the bad thing from the root. And sometimes you don't even know what the root is. If you don't know your
Hmm.
identity, what are you pulling?
Yeah.
But I
Hmm.
know Mark had a question before we go
I had
into
a
the
couple of
next
questions
segment.
based on what you were
Yeah.
saying, and all along those lines. But I was letting y'all have the dialogue because it's a very rich dialogue, and all along those lines. But Coach Lori, a couple of questions came to my mind as y'all were talking, and everything along those lines. One is that, like I said, the Cultural Arts Center that I work at used to host the NA meetings, and I know that some of the folks that were recovering, and NA is Narcotics Anonymous, and everything like
Hmm.
that, they would be sometimes lapsing into other vices. So sometimes they might get through one vice, but then they might go to chocolates, or they might go to cigarettes, or they might go to
Hmm.
another addiction. So I just wondered, when you were going through that cycle of recovery, whether there was any other temptations that were there, and how did you resist those temptations? Because that's one of the things that I would hear from some of my peers and friends who were part of that program, was that they might kick one habit, but then they would get into another habit.
And for me, Mark, it was the sex.
Hmm.
That was like a big thing for me. And it was the last thing that I had to really, really get delivered from, because I mistook sex for love.
Right.
And, and if you came back again, then that meant that you had some kind of love for me. I was spending money and not paying my bills.
Hmm.
Last year, I became homeless. In 2025, I just I got so to the point that I was making money, but I had a habit of not budgeting, not spending, and if you pushed me, I was pushing back. And I walked away. I became homeless. I broke my ankle, and I had to do a whole reset at 65. I was a speed addict. I loved anything going fast. I was on it. And and food wasn't so much of a big thing for me, but it was a thing. And it got me to the point that my doctor was saying, I need you to really get your cholesterol lower.
Yeah.
I said, well, I was Italian in my last life. I said, so you're asking me to do something that's very hard, the cheese, the pasta. And what he did was he said, look, food is now an addiction for you. Certain foods, so fried chicken,
Hmm.
lasagna, spaghetti, and I'm a good Italian cook. Been to
What they call
Italy.
it, OA, Overeaters Anonymous. There
Oh, it is
is a
anonymous.
group
Is the
So
yeah,
OA. Yes.
So
that's a real deal.
now, believe it or not, Mark, this is where I'm at. I'm better because now I'm also a health and wellness coach,
Okay.
teaching people how to live healthy and incorporating the different parts of the model into that for
Yeah.
what I do.
It's interesting y'all having this conversation because we have
Because that happens, but no one wants to identify it because it's
nobody
not a
wants to
substance.
identify that. But it's interesting y'all are having this conversation because we have two interns here, and one of the interns is actually just recently moved to Houston, Texas, because he's going to be attending Rice University. But the other one is going to graduate from North Carolina Central University, one of our HBCUs. But she has very much become involved in her church and was always a church person. But overheard her earlier this morning talking to her grandmother, and she was talking about how she had gotten away from a lot of bad habits. And so this is like, you have done a reset, she has done a reset. And I think she's in her early 20s, but she had gotten away from, even though she's in a new relationship, she had gotten away from overly getting sexually involved or sexting. She, well, not even sexting, because that's more like the internet version, but definitely not, as she put it to her grandmother, she's not fornicating even with her boyfriend
Right.
and everything along those lines. But she also said that she hadn't had a drink in a long time. I don't know that she was ever involved in drugs, but she had not had any spirits touch her lip and everything like that. But the other thing that she told her grandmother that I found really interesting, that sometimes people forget is an addiction, is that she said that she had not uttered a cuss word in a long time, because she was saying that that used
Mm.
to be one of her go-tos. Was really because it's
You got to
definitely
know who you are.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, Mark, for that. Because for anyone that's listening and is going to catch the playback, it's not always about what we think. It's something that you're overdoing it.
and that's
Eating. I remember I was watching Stand By Me. Remember Blart? And they ate the pies in the Stand By Me movie. Remember that? They were sitting
Yeah.
there eating and it was like boom, boom. But I thought about as kids, you have to think, I love pins. I was addicted to the little pins because at that time my mom would be going to New York. She'd get all the little Hello Kitty and stuff, the ones that came from Chinatown. But that was something that I like to collect. But when anything that becomes out of excess, as you know in the word, anything out of excess. So for anyone listening, it don't necessarily have to be drugs and alcohol. Behaviors can also be addictive.
Mm-hmm.
that's and
Shocking. What
right.
about
Yeah.
the people who are going to the five and dime stores? I've been noticing now when you watch the hoarder movie. I'm a little bit of a hoarder, only for heirlooms and things like that. But my car, when I see someone with their car like that, it's like wow, because you feel like there's no lack. And most of the time, when they talk to those folks, they'll say, you know what, I was homeless, I didn't have anything, and that's the reason why they hoarded.
Yeah,
So you
and
have to
sometimes
understand we have to pull the issue from the root, but sometimes
Yes.
folks don't want to open the door.
yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
definitely that can be a addictive behavior as well. I remember a gentleman that had a big car. I think it was like a station wagon, and he was definitely a hoarder because I remember him one time giving me a ride from the place that we were working at and everything like that. And I tell you, I've never seen so many newspapers in one car and everything like that because he was definitely hoarding the various newspapers that he was reading, or maybe not even
Mm-hmm.
reading, and everything like that. But we don't know how many critters were in that car because it was full of newspapers. I say the car was probably two-thirds full of newspapers. But the other question I was going to ask you is what definitely our beloved host was referring to, and all along those lines is this notion of was it easier for you to go on the recovery journey when you went so far away? Because you said you left from, I think it was New Jersey, to go to Georgia. And I know that there's a program here called TROSA and everything like that. So it's a residential program here in the area. And I know that a lot of the people come from various parts of the country and some from right here where I'm at in Durham, North Carolina. But I do know that even though it's a residential program mostly for substance abuse and everything, so I think that that's what the S stands for in TROSA. But they also have a lot of job opportunities because, like I said, the people that go
Mhm.
through the TROSA program, they are oftentimes involved with the TROSA moving, and they will move you anywhere in the country because it's a big moving company. They're oftentimes involved in what I'm involved in, which is festivals, because they'll oftentimes do a lot of the legwork in terms
Mm-hmm.
of like providing the labor for like the stages and everything like that. But they also have programs around gardening and a number of other things, including like a band that they have. So they have a number of things that they do, including during the Christmas season, selling Christmas trees and everything like that. So there's a wider range of trades that they try to teach you if you go through the TROSA program and everything like
Nice. So they do work there. That is very nice because sometimes that's the issue when you have
Yeah.
community reintegration. What are you going
Yes.
to do next? And that's where
Mm-hmm.
outcomes come up. One of
right.
the things that I don't like is that they'll have treatment funding, but I want to see the outcomes when they graduate from this program. How
Yes.
many to sustain?
Mm-hmm.
Is your job readiness? Is your job placement? So that's a great question,
And I
Mark.
think they do all of that because I think that at TROSA, which is like I said, it stands for trying to get the full name, Triangle Residential Options for Substance Abusers. But yeah, they have a variety of things, including some peer counseling, and I also know that they offer like some residential stuff, and they also are considered to be a modified therapeutic community. So I did meet the founder of the company and everything like that. So definitely, they seem like they've been doing a lot of work to maintain. But like any program, like I heard you talking about the program that you were in, Miss Laura, and everything like that, there are people that don't necessarily like the management and everything like that, and they might have had some conflicts with the management. But as far as I've been able to tell, it's a well-run program. Now, others that went through it, and I never went through it, might disagree, but they do have transitional housing and a number of other things. But I was just
Mm-hmm.
wondering, for you, was it easier because you were in Georgia?
Well, I didn't know anything about recovery. So I think that was the plus for me because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't have an outcome. I just knew that it's called First Step in Kennesaw, Georgia. And then I went and then I went to, the halfway house, but I didn't know what to expect. So I think for me, it maybe if I had a preconceived notion,
Right.
it would have been a totally different something else. But the blessing in it is I went in naked, blind, and I was at the point to be helped.
Yeah.
There was no
So your
and
motivation. So that's really what
yeah,
it is. The
right.
motivation. You were ready,
Yeah. It
Yep.
right?
sounds like
You weren't
There was nowhere else for
pre-contemplating.
me to go.
You were ready for the action. And that's one of the things too, that for anyone listening, if you're not ready, it's
you gotta be
okay.
Right.
you gotta be ready.
Because at this point is sometimes we do consider harm reduction, meaning that
Mhm.
if you're in the environment that you can't get out of, it's better to start one step. You know, you have they say you do something daily, it becomes a habit. One of the
21
things that we do
days.
for anyone that's listening for the first time on the Facebook platform for the Butterfly Room, we post every day. And that's one of the reasons that I do the posting is because running a drug program, there was a check-in. So there was people that came in for the partial hospitalization. They were with us for 5 hours all day. There were people who came for an hour. There were people who came for 3 hours. You
Yeah.
understand? So then when we opened up, everyone got the same thing so that we can see, especially on a Monday. I still love the Mondays because then you
Right.
got to figure out what was going on. Then some people say, you know what? Can y'all give me some extra juju for the weekend? I'm like, what do you mean? I got a party. There was this one guy, not to, go on a tangent. He wanted to meet this girl. So he said, Miss Toya, he said, I'm gonna be honest with you. And I said, what's up? Shoot. He said, well, you know this girl? He said, I'm having some issues. I'm not taking no Viagra. He said, but
Yes.
I'm gonna relapse today. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, because I'm having some man problems. So he had the man problems. He came back. He said, well, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I said, listen, I appreciate your honesty. I said, if you have another one, then I have to tell. So what ended up happening, he says, well, I'm just going to get my violation. He said, because she my girl now. And then he went away, and
See,
that was it.
yeah, you
So
just keep
I
going.
was like, again, that means he was using the opiates
Yeah.
because he was speedball, as well as he had a sex addiction, I guess. But
Yeah.
at this point, he wanted to get the girl. And then later on, I don't know the story, but when he told me that, I said, wow, the honesty there. So
Mhm.
at this particular point, sometimes you just have to be honest when it's the time. And
Yeah.
then if you have someone that really wants to be with you, they're going to understand the relationship and say, you know what, we're in recovery together.
Hmm.
What's the old thing? I remember 28 days. Can you keep a plant alive?
Hmm.
Remember that? Did they talk about that in your journey? They tell you when you get
No.
discharged, don't have a plant. You need to take care of the plant first before you get into a relationship. You ever heard that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard it.
They definitely say that and everything. Hey, Roy.
Didn't work for me.
I don't know. I don't have a green thumb, and the green thumb don't work for me. I don't know, Mark. What about
No,
the
I
spider?
understand the green thumb doesn't work for
Do you
everybody.
have
'Cause
a
I
green
don't have
thumb,
a
Mark? You have
yeah,
a
I don't
green
have a
thumb.
green thumb either. But Laura, I was and Totally everything. I was just curious along those lines. In that space, there has been a notion in some of the recovery programs that sometimes it's all right to keep the addiction going. Because I know here we have a program called the North Carolina Harm Reduction
Mhm.
Coalition. These harm reduction places are throughout the country and everything like that. So I was just wondering y'all's thoughts around this notion of at least keeping the stuff clean while the people are trying to
Of
recover.
course, of course. But the recovery coach, and then I'll chime in.
What
You
did you
know,
say?
I couldn't hear you,
Oh, you couldn't
You
hear
Toya.
were
me?
speaking about harm reduction. You know how some
Right.
they have the needle exchange programs and things like that. Harm reduction. How do you feel about that?
Right.
So, it's so ironic because after I think I had maybe 2 years clean, I had a job by the Integrated Care Program in Southwest Atlanta,
Hmm.
going into the drug houses and the shooting galleries, giving out condoms,
Hmm.
giving out, we did, there
With the
were
syringes, the
people,
syringe program.
yes, the syringe program, and just offering them a way to not get infected with HIV.
Right.
Correct.
And
That's harm reduction.
and so I Um, I I outran a bullet one day. I
Mm.
almost had to deliver a baby one day. And I mean, I would walk in and they would be actively using in the house. I'd give them a condom. I'd say, "Here, this is your little package, preventive care." And and they never understood. They were like, "It doesn't affect you." But when you know that you know that you know that you know
Right.
that you are delivered and that is the past,
So
that
you were
is the
doing
past.
outreach. But Coach Lori, you were doing outreach. So
Yeah,
Yep.
doing that.
basically that's so we're gonna go into that. I'm gonna give a name to that. So basically the first gateway to recovery efforts would be outreach. Outreach
Mm-hmm.
means would be grassroots. We actually at my full-time job, what we have a homeless program. We do a point and count yearly in Newark. So one of the things that you do, you go out and you do outreach and then you leave your pamphlet. That little card one day, as Lori said, when you reach your rock bottom,
Hmm.
that's when you're going to pick up that call. And,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and her and I actually ironically spoke about this last week, and I was astounded back in the day. What number I told you to call, or you could get on? What was it again?
211.
And 211 still works, and 211 has everything. You can access that through your phone,
Mm-hmm.
to the website, and that is national. So that
Yep.
was
Yes.
one of the how you say 911, 411, and the recovery resources is 211, and that
There you
works
go.
for you. Because
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
sometimes when you go out there, you can explain to them it's a 211 car, everything. And that from that time, when you say that for outcomes, SAMHSA is one of the major funders in the government, and there's a lot of
Yes.
outreach, treatment, aftercare.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, so now we're going to speed it up because we're looking at the time now. So
We're
now
looking at time.
throughout
By the
your
way, we do have
journey,
a audience member that we're saying,
yes.
"Bless you, Miss Laura, for sharing your truth and everything along those lines." I know we're winding down and everything, but I just
And
have
that's
one last quick.
Sister Amy. That's who we were speaking of. Good
Yes.
evening, Amy.
Our
Shout out
Amy.
to
And I
Morris
just have one other.
Ministries.
I did have one other last quick question for Miss Laurie and everything like that, because I do know that one of the concerns that people have with addictive behavior is it being passed down from generation to generation and relationship to relationship. Because I know that sometimes if people are in bad relationships or addictive behaviors, even a bad relationship, they will carry that to their new relationships. And of course, there's always the fear that kids of addicts may also become addictive as well. So I was wondering, how do you deal with that, and have that a concern of yours at all? Because you did say that you have, I think, two children. I forgot how many, but I
I
know that.
so I have 3 children, 6 grandchildren, and I am always teaching them regarding, like, my story is out there,
Right.
so I don't hide that. I do have a son that I am actively working with the best I can, just kind of keeping my hands on. It does make you tired. It does
Mhm.
Right.
make you, but prayer is so essential in our home, in our lives.
Yes.
And my oldest son, my daughter. So I am very active as a mother, as a grand, and I'm always reminding them that there's nothing you cannot tell me. You can't shock me. I
Hmm.
left I left no stones unturned. So if I were to go back in to my if I were to forget the reset, the redo, and all the 3 R's, I have nothing to go back to,
Thank you for
because
sharing.
I have nothing to go back to. So my focus is, I'm blinded to keep going toward my future,
Your
because
purpose.
my future and purpose is going to speak to the next generations coming behind me.
Yes.
Because if nobody knows this, if I can do it, if Lori Childs can do it, you can do it.
Right.
Yes, thank you for that because Mark, I allowed you guys to just go with that because for me, just getting back into the self-help, and that's one of the next steps for the butterfly room is to actually have self-help groups. One of the
Hmm.
things that I know that really works is that you have to be in rooms with like-minded people because
Right.
if you have a struggle and you're trying to explain it. And I'm grateful for you sharing that, Lori, about a badge of honor. It's not about a badge of honor. It's just that you're being tested. And if there is light and dark, someone knows things. And for anyone that is a believer, you have to understand that God is love. And one of the things that I don't understand, if God is love, why do you get not, the opposite of love for some people? But then I have to say that we have to give people grace. And as you
Mhm,
said, that we're all survivors. And when
mhm,
survivors are looking for love, it's because they were broken in some cases. And then
Mhm.
from there may be certain situations that's a trigger. And for anyone that's listening and you're saying that you want the love, as she stated, that was a trigger for her to go and to use. And as you said, if someone has a sex addiction, she said that when things were happening, the sex made her feel like it was a false sense of love. So thank you for sharing that. For anyone that's listening, maybe the reason why you're having an issue is because you're looking for love in all the wrong places. I know there's a song,
mhm,
that speaks to that. But I appreciate your candor today, and I know that this is going to help a lot of people.
mhm,
And I'm ecstatic because in the butterfly room, our goal is to become. You want to live out your days with peace and tranquility, but then if you have chaos or toxic environments, it doesn't work. One thing that I used to tell my folks that when you're in recovery, we always say with the recovery model is negative people, places, and things.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily have to be the substance. It can be that you're trying to live a positive life. And if you're around folks that are negative, that's going to affect your recovery. So it's not
Mhm.
that you're trying to remove yourself, or be nasty. It's just that it's your way of life. And now that you know what you know, Lori, now that you have accepted that, how is your life? How is your life now when you come into situations that are not positive? What do you do?
One of the I can easily remove myself. I've learned how to celebrate me. It's not always going to DSW and buying me the hottest pair
I know
of
I love the shop.
yes. And but you know what I did? I learned how to reward myself because I earned it.
mhm,
And I did when I took that hit in 2025 last year and crossed over into 2026. I didn't know what the year had in store for me. But what I learned to do, I prayed, I had faith, and I said, God, if you can do that, then you can do this. So in November, when I have my celebration, the date is to be determined. Amy is working with me.
Said
When
November
I,
2026.
yes, 40 years. So when I celebrate me, I have a new car. It
Congratulations.
I have a home to live in. My grandchildren live all throughout my house, and I'm able to just know that I love me and it's genuine. So when people don't celebrate me and when they're ugly, nasty, or whatever, bye bye.
yeah,
Thank you for sharing that because that's something that is hard because we love. God is love. And as anyone says that love is the highest form. And
Mm-hmm.
mhm,
sometimes it's hard. And I know for me, I love hard because I know the
Yeah.
journey. And I'm glad that you opened up this show with a testimony is a test. And I feel that whenever it gets hard, when I feel less love, that means I am trusting God. And one of the things is that it's not that I'm trying to be a evangelist or anything like that, because someone said that to me. And I said, wow, a friend of mine said it's a compliment. But, just being real serious, is that once you find out who loves you, then it doesn't matter. When you look at your journey and you say, you know what, I didn't think I was going to get here. One of the ladies from the church always says, Sister Regina, if God brings you to it,
He'll bring
he'll
you
bring you
through it.
through it.
Through it.
right,
And this is
Mm-hmm.
what you're telling us. He brought you through, Lori. He brought you through. Reset. You had to reset
Mm-hmm.
your life, restore your life, and rejuvenate. The rejuvenation is like a amoeba. You cut me off, I'm gonna keep regenerating. I'm gonna keep regenerating and
Mm-hmm.
regenerating. That's what recovery is. It's basically saying, you know what? There's a label. I'm wearing this S on my chest because I survived. Is
Yep.
that how you feel?
Yes. And can I just say this real quick? I am so grateful. I'm grateful for the woman that found me and turned me over to the police. I'm
Yes.
grateful for the parents that adopted me. And even though they didn't know what to do with me, I'm grateful for my parents that took up the reins. My mother, she's 83 years old. I love Melinda Wyatt, Apostle Melinda
Yes.
Wyatt Collins. I love her because she taught me how to really be a woman. And
Yes.
I'm grateful for my children because even though they didn't know what they were growing up in and through and being lost to the system, my two sons, my family is coming back. We're a one family where we were all over the place and I
Yes.
was dead to some, and my family is whole today. So I have so much to be grateful for, and the friends and the new friends, and then my health and wellness family. I have so much to be grateful for. I didn't go in a grave, Toya and Mark.
Yes.
I lost a lot of people that were using with me, drinking with me. They are not here. And I
Yes.
am still here to declare the word. And I'm an elder in the church. I am a
Yes.
reverend.
Congratulations.
Never, like, how do you go from all of that to this?
Well,
But
you know what they say. In order for you to help someone, you had to help yourself. One of the
mhm,
things that I felt that, after, getting hurt and everything, you heard of the crab syndrome. I felt that I got pulled down. And then
yeah.
you have to crawl yourself out. And it was more so when you don't understand something and you're beat up and you're looking for that. And one of the things I like how you said about love, what you're looking for is outward love, and sometimes some people don't have the capacity for that. And one of the
hmm
things for anyone listening, if you're looking for love, if a person has trauma and they're unable to give it to you, but you're unaware of it, that's the piece. So if you ever see someone and they have a block in front of them, sometimes you have to
hmm
forgive them, as the word said, because they know not what they do. Continue to love on them and
hmm
say that I love you. But sometimes we have to work on the language, our love language, because once you know what the love language is, then we can love together. So that's
hmm
really what we need to work on. I want to put that out there for anyone listening. Listen and watch the Butterfly Room on Facebook. We have songs so that we can inspire you, so that you can become. Mark, do you have anything else before we close this evening?
No, I think that was it. It was a great conversation, and all along those lines, I was actually just thinking about just one thing that I'd love to hear Lori's thoughts about, because one thing that I think people forget, even when they think about the drug community and all along those lines, is that a lot of those folks are have skill sets that they have developed. That even as they are recovering, they can definitely bring those skill sets into other communities. Because I guess I
Hmm.
work at the Hayti Center, which is a Black Wall Street, and I do know that some of those people that were so involved here, whether with Frank Matthews or a number of others, were probably involved in the drug community, but then they went and used some of those skills to develop a thriving community. And the same can be said of some of the leaders in Tulsa and Central Park and some of the other Black Wall Street. So as people are recovering and getting out of the drug culture, they can turn some of those skill sets, as Dean Geronimo, who's on the other show, talks about sometimes, in terms of bringing some of those skill sets into a new thriving community, because a lot of our minority communities are trying to create thriving communities, even in our hoods and all along those lines. Because I know a couple of people that have done that kind of work. There's a former drug dealer that is actually doing a lot of work to help kids get out of gangs here in Durham. And there's another friend of mine,
Yeah.
Yes.
Mike, and everything like that, that does polished souls, and he was actually in prison in North Carolina for, I think, a manslaughter charge, if I remember correctly. But he is definitely doing the work to help youth that are going through trouble. So there are ways that the men and the women that have gone through these programs can either help through outreach, or they can help businesses become thriving businesses if as they get out of that mindset. So I just wanted your thoughts around that, Lori, because I do know that there's a push around the country for a lot of minority communities to develop thriving communities.
Yes, and I think it's very helpful that we find ways to connect with
Mhm.
those that are working. Sometimes you don't have to reduplicate the wheel. You
Right.
just got to get connected to the wheel that's already moving.
Right.
So,
Yes.
as Miss Toya is, she has a wheel. I'm
Mhm.
connected to that wheel, and we're gonna look and see what other wheels we can
We're going
connect
to create
with.
some wheels from there because
That's
now this
right.
was just the introduction. Self help is coming. So
Yeah.
I posted if you are interested in joining the recovery movement here, it could be for all things. It's not just substances, supports for your family. Just email the butterfly room 2025 at gmail.com. Just give us some time. So as we know, we just need your location because we will be having virtual and in person, but we'll be in the New Jersey area. And I do like to travel. You never know. We may be on location in your state. I know I told Mark I'm coming to North Carolina as I
Going to
visit. We
North
Yes.
might
Carolina.
pop up at his center and we might have an on location butterfly room meetup. So please
Yep.
email, and once we get our list going, then we'll know what we're going to do from here.
We
But
can
I
definitely do that
appreciate
because
you
just really quickly,
this
Toya,
evening.
in that same realm, there is another show that airs on the same day as my show, Wednesday, the online dinner party. There's a new show from a sister, Jay Graham, and it's called Fiscal CPRR. So she is actually teaching a lot of us how to fund ourselves and how to create our own bank accounts and our own flowing economy.
Well, you
She's
need
actually
to
come
bring
up with this
her on. You
notion.
need to invite
She's
her,
actually come
Mark.
up with this notion of $27 per day, and you could have tons of money and everything like that without
Okay,
having to
you're
go
going to
through.
invite her on the show, Mark?
I can do that. You can definitely come on here,
Yes, I
and she
think
has her own.
we need some financial literacy because in order for us
Yes.
to know better, we can do better. We need some more knowledge because I know
Yeah,
they have these things on Temu and Sheen. You can put the money in there. I know when I get paid, I usually try to put some cash to the side.
and that's
Because
one of the
what if
things
the
that she recommends.
ATMs go? Remember the pandemic, the machine you couldn't get to the ATM, and that was
Right.
crazy. So
Ugh,
at least start putting some money, some green to the side, y'all.
Yep.
yes.
But thank you. We're going to go into our
Thank you.
closing remarks. And guess what, Coach Lori? The song, when we close our shows, we have a song. So the song that we are playing is dedicated to you. It's called It Gets Greater Later. So when we close the show, I always like to think about the guests. And even in my journey, I love music. Music soothes your soul. Whenever
Yes.
you feel like you're having a bad day, it gets you in the right place. So we're gonna the song today is great. It gets greater later. We're gonna make sure that we don't own rights to this music, but it was inspired by your story and anyone that's listening on the playback. And Mark, you want to go with your closing remarks, or we want to actually we're gonna start with Coach Lori. Coach
I thought we
Lori,
were going to close with Coach Lori.
how? Excuse me.
um,
I
I
thought we were
would
going to close
just
with Coach Lori.
No, no, no. We want the parting words. What you want people to remember. No, we talk. We want to anything that she wants to. Oh, you're already done then. Mark, good. So, what would you like, folks? Before I do my closing last statement, is there any slogan you want to share for anyone listening, or they're going to hear on the playback?
I just want to encourage everyone, no matter how tough it gets, always know that there is a way out. Don't get stuck. Find the way. Get to somebody. You got to trust somebody in order to get out. That means you got to talk. You got to do some kind of action, but you can get out.
Thank you. And one last thing here is self help will save you from yourself. Once you accept what's in front of you, you can live a happier life. And just know that, as my girlfriend always says, don't become the client. What do you mean by becoming the client? Meaning that you're not trying to work on yourself. Okay, we will see you in 2 weeks. And it was a pleasure. And you're going to be seeing
Thank you.
Coach Lori very soon. Have a blessed weekend, everyone. Ta
Have a
ta.
blessing.
Good night.
Just hold on. God didn't bring you this far to leave you. Keep the faith. I know it gets hard sometimes. I know life can knock the wind right out of you. And sometimes the people you love the most can be the ones who hurt you the deepest. But don't you give up. Don't you throw in the towel. Just know it gets greater later. I know that life is not knocked you down. You've had to smile when you wanted to cry. People you love let you down, left you asking God why. You gave your heart, they gave you pain. You gave them love, they gave you blame. And there were nights you couldn't see how any good could come from what you had to face. You prayed when you were hurt, prayed when you felt alone, prayed when you couldn't understand why God would let it go this long. But every tear you cried, He saw it all. And every time you thought you couldn't make it, He kept you from the fall. Yeah. You may not understand it right now, but baby, don't you lose your faith. Oh, yeah. God is working in the background, even when you don't see the way. Oh, what looks like a broken road could be leading you somewhere new. And everything you thought was over might be the thing God uses to rebuild you. It gets greater later. Hold on, don't you give up now. I know you've been through some things, but look at you, you're still standing somehow. Your tears won't last forever. The pain you feel today won't be your story always. Keep holding on, keep believing, even when you can't see it. God is still working it out. It gets greater, 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 greater later. Some people walked away when you needed them to stay. Some promises were broken, some love just faded away. You lost some things you thought you couldn't live without, but God had something better, you just couldn't see it then. You thought the closed door meant rejection, thought the silence meant He didn't care, but He was protecting your tomorrow while you were crying over what wasn't there. And that season almost broke you, but it didn't take your soul. You came out with more wisdom and a strength you didn't know. Now you can look back and say, God, I finally understand. You weren't trying to hurt me, you were building who I am. You may not understand it right now, but baby, don't you lose your faith. Oh, yeah. God is working in the background, even when you don't see the way. Oh, what looks like a broken road could be leading you somewhere new. And everything you thought was over might be the thing God uses to rebuild you. It gets greater later. Hold on, don't you give up now. I know you've been through some things, but look at you, you're still standing somehow. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It gets greater later. Your tears won't last forever. The pain you feel today won't be your story always. Keep holding on, keep believing, even when you can't see it. God is still working it out. It gets greater, 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 greater later, greater, greater. For every night you cried, there's gonna be a morning. For every door that closed, there's another one opening. For every no you heard, God's got a yes with your name on it. For every time they counted you out, God said, I'm not finished with you yet. You thought you were buried, but you were being planted. You thought you were forgotten, but God had you right where He wanted. And what you called a setback, God called preparation. What you called a broken season, God called transformation. So wipe your tears at your head. You ain't seen your best days yet. I know you're tired, I know you've been praying, I know you've been wondering how much longer, God, but don't quit now. You came too far. That pain didn't destroy you, that betrayal didn't destroy you, that disappointment didn't destroy you. You're still here, and if God kept you through that, He can keep you through this. It gets greater later. Baby, Keep trusting him. What you're going through won't last forever. Just keep the faith, because it gets greater later. Don't let this chapter make you think the whole story is bad. God is still writing, and one day you're gonna look back at everything you cried about and realize he was preparing you for everything you prayed about. So keep going, keep believing, keep trusting God, because baby,